And so this new lab is, you know, really just, I mean, we've talked about everything pretty much in the book. So this new lab is really some review here. But if we go to lessons in Blackboard and we scroll down all the way down to the bottom here, basically, and under the additional labs, weeks 11 through 15. And so here I have lab for week 12, which I've called offsets. And here's the PDF for that. Okay, and I actually already have that PDF open. And so I'm going to kind of go over this lab a little bit about what we're looking for, what we're trying to do. And then I'm going to go through and kind of do some review about offsets and some other instruction and techniques and things. So, all right. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with our lab that we had last week, the shapes lab. All right. So if you remember that lab, we basically had a couple of rectangles. And so this is, well, that's just there. Okay. I had to close this out here. And I never restarted it. So I'm going to start the Roboguide here and start the shapes program. All right, and you know, this is one nice thing. If you're running this on your own computer, it comes up and, you know, it has those. We don't have to worry about messing with the paths like we did in the classroom. So, but I'm going to choose lab 11 here, lab week 11 shapes, and open this lab. And so if you remember here, we basically had 3 fixtures in this lab. And there was a brown rectangular box, there was a red rectangular box, and then there was the blue cylinder. Okay. Now the first thing we want to do before we do anything else is we don't want to mess up anything from last week. So we're just going to go ahead and come over here and just do a save as. Okay. So I'm going to come down here and it says save cell lab week 11 shapes as, and I'm going to save this as week 12, and this is called offsets. And I'm going to throw an A on here because I already did this once today, so I already have offsets. So, well, let me just, if I just try to save that, notice it doesn't give me the OK button because it knows that there's already one with that name there, so I can't click OK. So that's why I'm adding the A here. You don't need to, but so I'm just going to tag on that A so I can kind of work through some of this here with you and give you an idea of what we're going to do. All right. So when you save this, it basically it restarts it because it's starting, you know, it's a new work cell. So it's opening the work cell lab week 12 offsets instead of the week 11. Okay. And I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. I'm recording this, so I'll post it after it's ready. Somebody hopefully will send me an email and remind me to post that. It takes a little while because Blackboard, after you're done recording, Blackboard processes it somehow and takes a while before it's available, but I'll upload that. So, you know, if you know, I don't really expect you to kind of work as long as I'm going here, but just kind of watch and pay attention and make sure that you understand what we're going to try to do. So here, this was our lab 11. We had these 3 fixtures. Okay, and remember over here in your work cell, it lists these fixtures. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to delete this blue cylinder. So I'm going to come over here and I'm just going to click on delete fixture 3, and the blue cylinder is gone. Okay. And then what I want to do is I want to kind of build up. What we're going to do is we're going to be working with offsets today. And so I wanted to kind of build up some fixtures that are offset from the fixtures that we currently have. And so what they're going to look like is these pictures in the labs here. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take the first fixture, fixture 1, which should be the brown box, and we're going to make a copy of that. And then when we make the copy, it gives us a copy. It's the exact same size. The location's a little bit off, and we'll see that. I'll do it here. But what I want to do is just kind of, go in there. And what we're going to do is we're going to reduce the size of the box by 100. Okay, so the brown box, I don't have the sizes here in this lab, but the brown box was 400 in the X direction and 800 in the Y direction. So what I did was I reduced that by 100 and 100, but I also made it 20 millimeters taller. Okay, so it's a little bit taller, but smaller by 100 millimeters, which means it's 50 millimeters in from all sides. And then we're going to add a second fixture then, which is going to be reduced by another millimeters in the X and the Y and 40 millimeters high. And what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to change the location of the box for the Z. We don't have to change the other values, but we do have to change the Z value. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. I'm just going to kind of quickly demonstrate this. Okay, so I'll come back over here to my handling tool. So, here's my fixture, the brown box. Let me just show you that again. Okay, so when we look at the settings here, we have 400 by 800 by 200, and the X location was 1200, 400, and 200. Now remember, this little XYZ that's showing over here, that little Cartesian origin point there, that is in the center of the brown box. So when we look at the location, it's at the center of the brown box in the X and Y direction, but it's on the top surface of the box. Okay, and so that's why we had to set the Z to be 200, because the height of the box is 200. And so if we made Z 0, then the top of the box is right on the floor and the rest of the box is actually under the floor. All right, and so we had to increase that. Okay, so remember, always make sure these things are locked so they don't accidentally move on you. And so I'm going to come over here. I'm going to come to fixture 1. I'm going to right click, and down here it says copy fixture 1. Then I'm going to come back to fixtures. Now I've highlighted fixtures. I'm going to right click and I'm going to paste figure 1, and that gives me fixture 1-1. Okay, so it just named it fixture 1-1. And we can actually rename these, but I didn't bother doing that, so I'm just going to leave them generic names like this. Normally I like to do it. And I'm just going to go ahead and adjust this fixture 1. Now, if you look here, you can just see at the top of the window there is a brown box. And so if you notice, here's this brown box floating in air. Okay, I don't know why Roboguide does this, but if you remember, when we first put on a new fixture, it's always 1 meter up from the floor. And since this box was 200 millimeters in the Z, then this fixture actually, when we look at the numbers, is going to be 1 meter beyond that. So it's 1200 millimeter floor, looking at the top surface of the box. Okay, so here's the copy of the box, but it's floating in air. Okay, all right, so then I'm going to click on that fixture. You can either click on it over here, or you can click on it over here in the work cell area. I'm going to double click on that. I'm going to unlock it, and we see the numbers here. I'm going to change the X is going down by 100. So that's going to be 300. And the Y is going to be 700. And the size in Z is going to be 220. Okay. And so now the box is a little bit smaller, but I'm going to change the Z and to be the same as the Z location is the same as the size in Z. And the one other thing is I'm going to kind of choose some kind of yellow color here. And I'm going to lock this and say, okay. So now you can see here. So here is that box. And if we look underneath of it, right, you can see that that box is actually inside of the brown box, but it's a little bit taller, right? So it has a little bit of height in here. So it's 20 millimeters higher, all right? But it's also 50 millimeters less in both the X and the Y directions, okay? So, and this just kind of gives us almost like a stair-stepping sort of action going on here. So we can play around with the offsets and we can just kind of watch and see what they're doing, okay? All right, so remember, if you guys have any questions, you can just, you know, chat in there, put something in the chat box. Okay, so that was fixture 1-1. The yellow one here is fixture 1-1. Okay, so then I'm going to come over here, and I've already pasted it, so I just do a right click and I can paste it again, and I'll get fixture 1-2. And again, fixture 1-2. Now remember, fixture 1-2 is a copy of the original brown box. So it's the same size as the original brown box, but here it is floating 1 meter, 1,000 millimeters above the other brown box. Okay. And so it's sitting there, and I'm just going to come over here. I'm just going to click on it right here and unlock the values. And now this is being reduced 100 millimeters less than the yellow box, but I'm starting with a brown box, so I got to drop by 200 in the X and 200 in the Y, and then I'm going up 240 is the Z, and then over here again we got to change this to 240. Okay. And then I forgot what color, so I'm going to flip back to the lab, and I made this some sort of green color. Okay, so I'm going to click on this, and I'm just using the colors to make it more visible. Okay, it's not real critical what color they are, but they just kind of make it stand out a little bit that you've got the different boxes. So again, you can see, right, so there's my green box, a little bit smaller in the X and the Y, but 40 millimeters taller in the Z. So again, if we look like from underneath, you can kind of see that. It's hard to get it because it's all three of them are there, so it's trying to show you all three of them. Okay. All right, so there are that, and I'm going to do one more. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to paste this fixture. Double click on it. Again, it's floating up here in midair. Yeah, I can't even see it in my current zoom. But this is going to be 100 because we're going down 300 now, and 500. And it's going to be up 260. And this is going to be 260 over here. Okay. And my color, I forgot the color. That was some kind of blue color on there. So select the blue. Okay, I'm not even using the same ones that I had in my screenshot that I gave you in the lab. But all right, so here I have these three boxes sitting basically inside of the original box, okay, or fixtures, okay. And so you can see the stair step shape going on, okay, on these boxes. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to create offsets. So right now, remember, we created a program to go around the brown box. Okay, so if I open up my teach pendant here, and we select our program, remember I had a program here, HR Brown. Okay, so here was my program, which is HR Brown. And if I just run this program, so if I just run this program over here, I'll come over here and hit play, and we'll just kind of watch it. It just went around the corners of the brown box. However, remember, it right now, if you look at it, it's in joint. Okay, these are joints, so when it actually made the movements, instead of moving in a perfectly straight line, the arms swung out, right? Because in joint movements, it makes a nice, easy, fluid movement as opposed to trying to move in a straight line. So one of the first things I want to do here is simply go back through, and I'm going to change all my motion instructions to linear. So I'm going to arrow over here. I'm going to select choice, hit number 2 for linear, hit enter. Okay, and come down and come over here, and I'm going to go. Did that change? It didn't change because read your instruction teach pendant is disabled. All right, every time you hit that play button over here, it always shuts off your teach pendant. I always forget that. All right, so I'm going to hit choice again, hit 2. Okay, come over here to the next one, choice 2, down over, choice 2, down over, choice 2, down over, choice 2. Okay, and notice I'm not going to mess with the speeds here. The speeds are as fast as this particular robot will go, which is 2,000 millimeters per second, because in joint it was running at 100% speed. You guys have done these labs before. You know, if you make this 50 millimeters per second, it's going to take quite a while for it to get around the boxes. So when you try to simulate it and see how it looks, you're sitting there twiddling your thumb. So I'm going to leave it at full speed for this exercise, but I do want to see it linear, and I do want to see fine terminations, so it's ending on the corner. Okay, so you guys are saying you can still hear me, right? I didn't hit that mute button again, right? Okay. All right, so Heather, I guess if you're having troubles, I am recording this, so you can download it. I'm sure you'll remind me to get it posted up there, post the link to you so you can get it later this evening, probably, because it takes Blackboard a while to get it. But yeah, but everybody else is saying they can hear me, so I'm going to move on. Okay, so what we've done here is change these to linear. Now, maybe you already had linear when you did yours. If that's okay, that's fine. But make sure they're linear, and make sure that the terminations are fine. Okay, and you can go with a slower speed if you want, but I kind of prefer just having it at a high speed. All right, and so I'm just going to rerun this. Okay, and again, it shut off my teach pendant, but so now you can see, right, it's actually traversing the outside of the brown box. So the top outside of the brown box. Okay. All right, so now what I want to do is I'm going to take a copy of this program. Okay, so I'm going to come over here to turn my teach pendant on, select the program, and hit the next button over here to get to copy, and I'm going to make a copy of this. Okay, Now the copy of it, if we flip back to the lab, I told you what to name it. Okay, so when you name this copy, it's going to be LF, which is your last name, first name, BR underscore. Underscores are valid for file names. So BR for Brown, and then UO for user offset. Okay, so that's kind of where my naming. Now, one of the beauties of this when you make a copy is it keeps the name there, so you can just add on to the name or whatever. So I don't have to redo the H and the R and the BR. I just have to add the underscore. So I'm going to arrow down here to uppercase, and then you see YZ, and then there's an underscore. So I'm going to hit that 3 times. There's my underscore, and then I'm going to do a U and an O. Okay, so and then copy OK? Yes. All right, so there is my copy of the program. And so now what I'm going to do here is I am going to select this copy. So remember to abort any programs that are running, just in case. It's always kind of good practice when you're starting a new program to make sure you've stopped that. So function 1 does an abort all. Okay. And so then I'm going to come down, I'm going to select this one. And this is the exact same program. It's going around my box. Okay. And what I want to do here is to create a little program that's going to loop around. So now notice here, right, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 boxes. And so what I want to do is I'm going to create a program that's going to loop around 4 times. And then, but each time it's going to offset. Okay. So first thing I need to do is I'm going to have to insert a couple of lines at the top here. So I'm going to go to next, edit command, insert, and I'm going to insert 3 lines for now. Okay. And the first line, then I'm going to have to, since I'm going to have to go around 4 times, I'm going to need a counter. So I need a data register. So I'm going to go to instruction, registers is the first one. And I'm just going to take a register, register 1, okay. And register 1, I'm just going to set it equal to 0 to initialize it. Now remember, you got to come down to constant, arrow down or hit the number 2 to get to constant, then hit enter, then you can type in whatever number. So I'm going to start counting or initialize register 1 to 0. Okay, I'm going to leave line 2 blank for a minute. I'm going to come back to it later, but now I'm going to insert a label. So I'm going to hit instruction, instruction, and then press 5 for label, and press 2 to get the label. And this is just going to be label 1, which is the top of my program. Remember that we can always label, we can always put descriptions on our points and our labels here. So I might just like call this top of the program or something here. And so if you want a space, you can just arrow over top of arrow over for a space again, and then this is going to be program. Okay, and I'm just going to leave it right there. Okay, just wanted to remind you about that. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to initialize this register, register 0, and then we have our label, and then we have our code that goes around these 4 points, and returns back to 0.1. Now notice here, this should just be 0.1. It shouldn't be 0.5. It should be 0.1. Okay. That was because I did that copy and paste the other day, and when I pasted the position number, it pasted 5 as a brand new number, even though 1 and 5, you can see by the @ symbol, are the same point in space. So that is 0.1 here, which is the start of the box where they meet. And then I'm going 0.2, 0.3, 0.4. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I need to advance my counter. So I come down here to the end, and when the word end is highlighted, it will simply add to the end of the file, and I'm going to select instruction, and I'm going to go to register, and I want to add. Okay, so this is my counter. So I'm going to have register 1 is equal to register 1 plus down to constant and add 1. So this is my counter to count how many times I've been through. So we got register 1 is equal to register 1 plus 1. So it is 0, but now at line 9, once it hits line 9, register 1 will be a 1. But it's already went around the box once. Okay. And then I'm going to hit instruction again. I'm going to do an if statement. And I want to say less than. So if register 1 is less than, if register 1 is less than a constant, and the constant is 4, okay, because remember, we're doing a bottom test here, so we've already went around it. So it starts out at 0, we went around it once, it becomes a 1. We go through it again, it becomes a 2, so we actually need to do less than 4. And then I'm going to jump back to the top, label 1. Okay. And so what I'm going to do now is just test this program. Okay, it doesn't hurt to just go through and test these. So I'm just going to hit the play button here, and I'm just going to let it run through. And it goes 1, 2, 3, and 4 times around the brown box. And then the program ends. Okay. So now we want to add the offset. Now, the first time through the offset should actually, or the first time through the loop, the offset should be 0 because you want to go around the brown box. Okay. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a position register. So I'm going to come down here to line 2, which I left blank. Okay, if you forgot to leave it blank, you have to do an insert, right? So come over here and do an insert. But I'm going to come over here, I'm going to select instruction. And under instruction, I'm going to choose register. And what I want to do is I want to 0 out my register. So I've showed you this before in class. I'm going to choose the negative option. And again, my teach pennant is disabled. Okay. All right, so I'm going to do number 3 with a negative sign. I'm choosing position register. Position register 1 is equal to, and then I'm going to do the LPOS minus LPOS. Okay, and so I do the LPOS minus LPOS, and that's going to take that position register, whatever it's equal to, and 0 it out. And so now you've got your XYZ, yaw, pitch, and roll are all zeroed out. Okay, so to me, that's like the fastest way to do that. All right, so now I'm going to, on each of my motion lines, I'm going to say run this offset. Okay, so for each one of these lines, which are now lines 4 through 8, I need to add an offset. So I'm going to go to edit command. I'm going to do a 5 replace. I'm going to do number 2 motion modify. And then you see number 3 says insert an option. So I'm going to insert an option. And the option I want is number 5, which is the offset in the user frame. And the register we're going to offset is register 1. And then here it tells me I could step through and skip ones if I wanted to, or I could just, in this case, I know I just want to do all of them, so I'm just going to click all. Okay. And so now then that added this offset to each and every one of the motion instructions. Okay. So just to test this one more time, I'm going to hit play up here. And now remember the offset is all zeros. And so it's still just going through and going through the outside edge of the round box. Okay. All right. So now what I need to do is I need to actually add the offset. Okay, so let's take a look at our box here for a minute. And I'm going to pick on 0.4 here for right now. And so given this 0.4, we are 20 millimeters up in the Z direction. We are plus X is here. So we're minus 50 millimeters in the X direction. Okay, so to get to this corner right here, here's the corner I'm going to try to get to. I have to go minus X 50 millimeters, minus Y 50 millimeters, and plus Z 20 millimeters. Okay, so I kind of have to make that shift for each one of those. Okay, so what I'm going to do is that's an X, a Y, and a Z. So I'm going to have to insert 3 lines. So right here before I add to my counter, you could do it right after the counter, but it has to be before the if. So it's got to be before line 10. So I'm just going to add it before the counter line because I like to keep these 2 lines together, the counter and the if, because they're kind of related to each other. So I'm going to come to next, edit command, insert 3 lines, press enter, and turn my teach pendant on and do it all again. Insert, enter, 3, enter, and now I've got 3 lines. Okay, and so I'm going to insert these 3 lines. And what I need to do is I need to add to the X, then I need to add to the Y, then I need to add to the Z. So I'm going to come up here and actually, I could have inserted 1 line now that I think about it, always, and then copied it once I get the first line done. Okay, so I think I'll do that. I'm going to say instruction, register, and I want to add or subtract depending on which one we're going to do. X is the first one, and it's going to be a subtraction. Okay, and now notice what I want to do is add just to the X or subtract just from the X. So I'm going to come down to number 3 here, the I comma J, and its position register 1, and X direction is 1, and then I need PR 1 comma 1 again, but it's not there. But notice number 8 is next page. So I press 8. Oh, still not there. Press 8 again and go to the 3rd page, and then it's number 4. And I'm going to do 1 comma 1. And then over here, we got to come down to constant, hit enter, and we're going to do minus 50. Okay. Oops. Okay. So I did minus 50. Okay. So let me just I'm going to make this one a plus. Okay. I did a double negative, so I don't want to do that. So you can either put in as the constant a negative sign, or you can I hit F4 again. Yeah, because right here, hopefully you guys can hear me now. I noticed there's a little light on here, I guess. So, all right. So, yeah, I bumped that F4 because I wanted to press this F4, and I pressed the F4 on the keyboard, which muted me. So, sorry about that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I am going to copy. I'm going to copy line 9, okay? And I mean, I could go through and add the instruction like I just did for line 9 and do that for 10 and 11 for the Y and the Z. Well, gosh, that's a lot of menus and stuff to go through. So I think it's actually easier to copy and paste. So I'm going to edit command, copy. All right, and I'm going to copy this line. So I press copy to tell it which lines to start at. I press copy a second time to tell it which line to end at, and it's the same lines, but you got to press copy there twice. Then I'm going to just come down here on 10. I'm going to paste logic, and then I'm going to paste logic a second time. Now I can just come up here and I can come over to the 1. This will be a 2 for Y. 2 for Y. And the Y is also a minus 50, so I don't have to change that. Okay. And then I'm going to come down to the next one. This is going to be a positive 20. Okay, but it needs to be for the Z, so I need to put a 3 and a 3. Okay. And so what that's going to do again is the line 9 up here is going to subtract minus 50 in the X direction. Line 10 is subtracting 50 in the Y direction. And line 11 is giving me that height adjustment. It's going up 20 millimeters. Okay. And I'm doing this after I went around the box the first time. So the first time around the box, my position register is 0 because of the 2's here, right? So it's just zeroed out. But the next time through the box, I'm going to subtract 50, and add 20 in the Z. Next time, I'm going to subtract 50, add 20 in the Z. That'll put me up here on the tip of the green. And then I'll do it one more time, another minus 50, and up 20. Okay. All right, so I'm going to just go ahead and run this and see what happens, see if I made any mistakes. Okay. All right, so you can see here, it just kind of went right along here and touched each one of these corners for 0.4. Okay. However, if I zoom out a little bit, notice what happens, right? Down here at 0.1 and 0.2 and 0.3, they're nowhere near the green and yellow and blue boxes, are they? Okay. So what you guys have to do, and this is your part of your lab exercise. I've done 1 point for you, but what you're going to have to do is you're going to actually have to use 4 position registers instead of just the 1. So I did 1 for you, but you're going to have basically a different offset for each one of those lines in here. And so, you know, for 0.1, you're going to have an offset. For 0.2, you're going to have an offset. 0.3, you're going to have an offset. And 0.4, you're going to have an offset. But those are all different because for 0.4, again, for 0.4 here, right, we went minus 50 on line 9, minus 50 in the Y direction, or in the X direction, minus 50 in the Y and plus 20 in the Z. But when we look over here at 0.3, we needed to do plus 50 in the X. Okay. So we still needed to do minus 50 in the Y, but we have to do plus 50 in the Z. Okay. And so you guys are kind of have to add and modify to this code, because the idea is we want to go just around the top of the brown box the first time, then around the yellow box, then around the green box, and then around the blue box. All right, so but that's pretty much it for this part of the lab. And actually we're going to repeat the exact same thing for the red box, okay, with one caveat. With the red box, we're going to use tool offsets instead of user frame offsets. So here, if we look at the code, okay, let me switch to the other teach pendant here for a minute. So when we look at the code, we go to the I pendant. All right, and so it's a little more visible with the I pendant, but and I wanted to show you the data. I'm going to run this again, but before we do that, so just looking at the, looking at these values, we've got the PR1, right? And the PR1, comma 1 is the X direction, comma 2 is the Y direction, comma 3 is the Z direction. Okay. But when we look at the motion instructions, right, this says offset, comma PR1. Well, this offset PR1, okay, that offset is a user frame offset. If we were to come over here and choose under choice, if we were to select number 2 on the second screen, tool underscore offset, that is for the tool frame. Okay, so for this, what I've shown you here was using a user frame offset, and you're basically going to repeat the exact same thing for the red box, but use tool offsets instead of user offsets. And so remember, with tool offsets, plus Z is going down whichever direction you're pointed. And right now we're pointing straight down, so plus Z is down. Where here in the user frame, plus Z was in the up. All right, but you also got to pay attention what direction is plus X and plus Y in the tool frame. And so you just have to make sure that your pointer is lined up with your X and Y directions correctly, so that you go around the tip of the rectangles within the red box. Okay. All right, so that is the exercise for this week. One thing I'm going to do, I'm going to switch to dual screens here. And I just want to watch as we step through this. On the second screen over here, I'm going to choose my position registers. Well, I guess I forget, it doesn't actually update it when it runs this. So I'll have to like refresh it each time. So if I'm going to, I'm just using position register 1. Okay. And so these are all zeros here. Or, I mean, they're not all zeros right now. We got minus 200, minus 200, and an 800. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn my teach pendant on, and I'm just going to step through the program. So I'm going to come over here and start at the top of the program. And I'm going to put step on. I'm just going to step through this. Okay, so notice, right, the position register minus 200, minus 280. And I'm on line 1. So I'm going to run line 1. I'm going to run line 2. Now, you don't see the change here. So what I need to do is I need to click over here. I'm going to hit previous, and then I'm going to hit position again. So now you see that it's zeroed out. What happens is it just doesn't update the screen when you have it in this position view of the position registers. It just doesn't update it. It zeroed it out. It just didn't show you that. So you had to kind of close out that screen and go back in. All right. So then we, you know, we're going to just run through the movements here. Okay. Oh, you got to click back over and highlight the program side of the screen. Okay. All right. So it comes down to the brown box, goes over. Goes over, and returns. And now I'm on line 10, 11, 12. All right, so I'm going to come back over here and just look at my register, hit position, and notice, right, we went minus 50, minus 50, minus 50, plus 20. Okay. And I'll flip back over here, and I'm going to step through one more time. Okay. I'm going to step through. It's going to go round, right? So now it came up to 20, and it's right there. It's sitting right there at the corner of the yellow box. And so I'm going to hit forward, 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 and then I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to select position again, and now it's at 100, right? So we went minus 50. Now we're another minus 50, so we're getting to the green box. So minus 100 from the brown, minus 100 from the brown, and up 40 to get this point right here. Okay, and so then click back over here and hit forward, 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 forward. Okay, so now it's going. And so there it is right there at the tip of the green box. Okay. And then forward on through there, it goes back through there. It advances the position register values again. So let's flip back over here and look at those one more time. So we have minus 150. So from brown to yellow is 50, yellow to green is 50, and green to blue is 50. So that's 150 from the brown all the way to the blue, minus 150 in the X, minus 150 in the Y, and plus 60 in the Z. All right, so that's our offset. Okay, and so now if we forward through here again, all right, so now it's then at the tip of the blue blocks. All right, so, and again, right now I'm offsetting all 4 points with the same position register, which is not correct. So when you look at point 3 over here, point 3, I'm nowhere near my fixtures, right? I'm way, way off and getting further away every time because I'm offsetting all of them the same way. So that's part of your lab exercise. You just got to make the adjustments so that you're touching the 4 corners of every fixture as you go around. So that's pretty much the lab. Like I say, the second part of the lab does the exact same thing, but using a tool offset with the red box instead of the user frame offset with the brown box that I just did. So is there any questions about any of this? Looks like a lot of fun, right?